A plane crashed in Toronto. It was a Delta flight. There was only a small handful of injuries. I believe everyone's okay, so we're glad to hear it. Now, initially, we wanted to lead off with the plane crash story because Democrats, of course, are blaming Elon Musk and Donald Trump over this crash because they've begun to fire people at the FAA, plus pulling out of all these DEI programs they've been heavily critical of. And sure enough, just as soon as Trump gets in office, we start seeing a lot of plane crashes. Now, there's a question of whether we're just hyper-focused on these stories or if there actually is an uptick. And it does seem to be that, as many people predicted over the past year, this was going to be escalating. However, my friends, we have opted for a different lead story. And I wanted to avoid this story. I have to be completely honest. One, because there's like a 2% conflict of interest in that we know Ashley St. Clair. I consider her to be a friend to a certain degree. Like, we don't hang out or anything, but she's a friend of the show. She's helped us out from time to time, and we know her. So I try to stay out of the business. But this story over Elon Musk's secret child with conservative influence, they call her conservative influencer, has once again bubbled up as one of the top cultural stories. As much as I don't care about tabloid drama, well, Ashley has brought the New York Post into her home to take pictures. There are claims now that Elon is not acknowledging the child or not finalizing an agreement or something. We're going to go through all the details because it's a big story. But I do believe that as this story has basically become one of the top stories outside of the major scandals that Elon has uncovered, there's a lot of cultural questions about what the conservative movement coalition is willing to accept. Now that it's seemingly winning the culture war, there are a lot of people on the right critical of single motherhood, of women having romance and flings and love children with powerful billionaires, and with many prominent conservatives and traditional families and influencers defending Ashley. There's calls for hypocrisy. So I think addressing these questions, considering the scope of the story now, once again, another story is dropped about what's going on with this, matters. But then I just got to say, look, Elon Musk really is rivaling Donald Trump as the most famous guy on the planet right now. Certainly Trump is. But with Elon uncovering what millions of dead people on the rolls of the Social Security Administration listed as alive, brings up a lot of questions, sending Doge into the IRS to make layoffs and now the FAA. This man has certainly gotten a lot of work done. That's good. But there are a lot of cultural questions about what the right is willing to accept in terms of morality. So we're going to talk about that and so much more. Before we do, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and buy coffee. We got 2 weeks till Christmas, despite the fact it's been 2 months since Christmas, but you can still pick up your gingerbread at Cast Brew Coffee with Phil dressed like Santa.
Yeah.
Nice. You got Alex Stein's Primetime Grind, 2 times caffeine. Drink responsibly. Legit, that stuff's strong. And everybody's favorite Appalachian Nights. Rise with Roberto Jr., stand your grounds. Yo, I don't even need to promote the Ian's Graphene Dream. I don't get it. No matter what we do, it just sells like fire. Like, Ian's dumping years worth of coffee, just selling it like crazy. Well, y'all are putting him through college, so you know he needs it. Castbrew.com. Also, don't forget, go to timcastpremium.com. Sign up for Rumble Premium using promo code TIM10. Check out the Green Room podcast. Link is in the description below. If you go to the rumble.com/Timcast IRL, you can see the videos we have on the Green Room show, which is the behind-the-scenes conversation with a variety of our guests. Yo, Roman Nation from the Timcast Discord got 122,000 hits. So it was really great to see everybody tuning in to check out the Roman Nation podcast. Of course, if you want to get involved in our active community, our Discord, you go to timcast.com and click join us, where you can hang out with over 20,000 people, building culture, sharing influence, networking, and that's what we got to do. So smash that like button, share the show with everyone. You know, of course, that uncensored call-in show will be coming up at 10 p.m. where you, as members of our Discord, can call in and talk to us, and all of your chats will appear on the uncensored portion at Rumble. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Bethany Mandel.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
So I have a Substack and a podcast called The Mom Wars, and talking about culture issues and motherhood and parenting and all of those things from a conservative perspective, but not psychotic trad wifery, somewhere like in the normie sphere. That's where.
Well, so this Ashley St. Clair Elon story is right up your alley.
So up my alley. I actually did a podcast yesterday where I weekend about this. So
well, we're getting scandalous. Maybe we'll get more female viewers on this episode than we normally get. Shane's hanging out.
I didn't wear like a low cut shirt actually, so I have to do something to earn the love of your viewers.
Yeah, I'm the host of Inverted World Live. We go live every Sunday. Last night I had a gentleman on who was raised in a community of NASA astronauts. and grew up to have a lot of really weird experiences in his life, near-death experiences, cattle mutilations. You can check that out on YouTube at Tales from the Inverted World. What up, Phil?
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Shall we get into this story? I mean, okay, so this story is nuts. And it starts with a news story from the New York Post that has just dropped. Ashley St. Clair feels jilted and terrified after Elon Musk refused to protect her, pal says. This has become viral, scandalous. It's one of the top dominating stories in the cultural space. Now, we here at Timcast, we are a relatively hard news, esoteric show. We don't really jump into the scandalous cultural personal affairs. But this one is one of the biggest cultural stories. Why? Well, Elon is arguably the most important, not more than Trump, but he's like number 2, basically, in terms of importance in the world, what with the gutting of all the corruption and what Doge is doing. And this story hits a nerve on what the right, who has just had a tremendous cultural victory, is willing to accept. So let's start with the gist of the story, which I think we have this one. Man, there's just a ridiculous amount of stories on this, okay? Here's a story from the 15th. Ashley St. Clair influencer who claims to have had Musk's 13th child reveals life of secrecy after whirlwind romance with down-to-earth billionaire. Here you can see Ashley St. Clair. I will say, full disclosure, we're at Timcast. We consider her a friend of the show. She's been a couple times. It's not like I hang out with her all the time, but I do think I consider her to be a friend in the industry, just so that's clear. They're going to mention in an exclusive sit-down from her glitzy Manhattan pad Saturday, Ashley St. Clair, 26, described the 53-year-old Tesla and SpaceX mogul as funny and down-to-earth, but claimed that he wanted to keep their baby a secret for everyone's safety. My child is the most important thing that happened to me. I wouldn't change anything. St. Clair broke the internet on Friday when she posted on X that she gave birth to Musk's baby 5 months ago, a revelation she said she was forced to make due to prying tabloid reporters. Musk has not yet acknowledged the allegations, and his reps did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Quote, Ashley and Elon have been privately working towards the creation of an agreement about raising their child for some time. It is disappointing that a tabloid reporter who repeatedly ambushed Ashley and her family made it impossible to complete that process confidentially. We are waiting for Elon to publicly acknowledge his parental role with Ashley to end unwarranted speculation, and Ashley trusts that Elon intends to finish their agreement quickly, in the best interests of the well-being and security of the child they share. Now, Ashley put out a statement on Friday saying that because there were these tabloid journalists basically hounding her and her family, she was forced to make this disclosure, which she did not want to do. The story has now taken multiple form, with the New York Post basically going off about it, the Daily Mail picking it up, as they were the ones, I believe, who I'm not entirely sure. I think it was Daily Mail that was going after it initially.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And here we are now. Some are speculating with the release of these stories that what's actually happened is that, now I'm not saying this is true, but with that statement about they haven't come to an agreement yet, some are speculating the story was Elon dropped the story, dropped the conversation, was not negotiating an agreement. And so the real reason Ashley went public was because she was trying to put pressure on Elon to come to some kind of agreement. That's speculation online. I would just say, Occam's razor.
Yeah.
The likely solution, the solution that is likely makes the least amount of assumptions. I think it's fair to say, with the tabloids writing the story like crazy, aside from the fact she did obviously do the story with the New York Post, that she was pressured because of the media. But this is a wild story with tons of prominent conservative personalities going off saying that this should be unacceptable. The right should not tolerate single motherhood in this way and praise or defend it, while many other prominent conservatives are defending Ashley because she's been great for the MAGA movement. I don't know. You guys were mentioning before that you think that it's much more conspiratorial and crazier than that. So I don't know what you think.
Why does this one have to be a secret? Like, I wonder if that's the case for him. Why does this baby have to be a secret while he totes the other ones around?
Was it a secret, or was it just currently a secret? Like,
right.
when Elon had all these other kids, was it publicly declared, like, new baby born?
Well, when he had his second baby, I believe with Grimes, is also when the story came out that he had his other baby coming out with the Neuralink CEO. So that was a secret baby to them.
She tweeted him, and then she ended up deleting the tweet on the 15th, and she said, Elon, we've been trying to communicate for the past several days, and you have not responded. When are you going to reply to us instead of publicly responding to smears from an individual who'd posted photos of me in underwear at 15 years old? The only acknowledgement was back to Milo. Milo was posting, like, she's been going after him for years, and so Elon responded, whoa, and then Ashley responded that to him and then ended up deleting it. So I think that's created
while
let's see if we
Milo's
can-
account was banned for 7 days.
Yeah.
So it was very
really?
strange to see Elon posting to an account that had been
Was it banned
ended.
under Elon or prior to his taking over Twitter?
I think it was already. Milo was back, but I think Elon responded to it after Milo had been banned.
Here's the tweet. Scandalous from the New York Post. Milo, who literally was on the show last week, tweeted, Ashley St. Clair plotted for half a decade to ensnare Elon Musk. And there's a tweet, I guess we got to pull up the image. It has been deleted, I guess. And it said, I need to get Elon Musk's attention for a marriage proposal, please, Greg. He said he's got a kid with a woman already, seems unlikely to work out. St. Clair responded, well, he actually has 7 kids and goes through them pretty fast with a crying emoji. I don't think it's fair to say that proves she was going after Elon planning for this to happen.
She said that was in jest.
I believe it absolutely was a joke. I don't think she's actually sitting there, I'm going to get Elon or whatever.
Also seems possible, though.
But Elon did respond, whoa, to it.
Yeah. And that was his only public.
And then what did she responded to it, but she deleted that tweet?
Yeah, so she deleted the tweet very quickly. I got a screenshot of it, so it's like I saw it myself. And she said, Elon, we've been trying to communicate for the past several days, and you have not responded. When are you going to reply to us instead of publicly responding, yada, yada. So that's the only time that he's publicly acknowledged this. He's tweeting through it. And
it really does sound like then it's not entirely, or I don't know, that Ashley was being hounded by the tabloids, but that Elon was not coordinating with
her lawyer.
To be the dad and pay the bills or whatever he's got to do.
These two were like publicly arguing about H-1B just a few months ago.
Elon and Ashley?
Yeah. So, maybe there was something else going on behind the scenes then.
I mean, it may very well just be that they were having a dispute. They didn't intend to go public until the tabloids got wind of the dispute. And then she was like, I guess I have no choice,
Right. I mean, the New York Post piece that John Levine posted said that he's putting her up in a $40,000 a month place in New York. And I wonder if that's
$40,000 a month.
Yeah, that's what it says.
How much do you think? Okay. I shouldn't even ask the question. There are tons of women that probably would be like, if only they could have a kid with Elon and then never have to do
100%.
anything.
AOC's pregnant right now.
Dave, is she really though?
I don't know.
That is a rumor going around that she is. There's the Dave Chappelle joke where
She said that she's not.
remember Chappelle's show? Oprah calls Dave and she's like, Dave, I'm pregnant, and he goes, I got you, bitch.
Yeah.
That was his joke. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it's a
guy.
tale as old as time. You try to get with the rich guy, and then you just milk it dry. It was the Playboy guy, wasn't it Hugh Hefner?
Yeah.
All of those
Yeah.
women who were sleeping with him all that time, it wasn't his sparkling personality.
Yeah, this is an archetype of a rich man with lots of children.
Yeah.
Spread across the globe.
Yeah, considering the fact that Elon has made it abundantly clear to the world that he's looking to have as many children as he possibly can, I don't think that it's beyond someone to say, hey, this is probably a fairly easy thing to nail down,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he wants to have an army of mini Musks, but
I do.
really, you think so?
Yeah.
I
Just like Jeffrey Epstein. He also was farming out. He wanted to create a whole army of little Epsteins.
Yeah, he was that was part of. Epstein was all about.
It was weird.
Yeah, it's
because
very
they're both transhumanists.
Elon, however, to a certain degree, he does talk about we got to repopulate and all that stuff.
100%.
I do not believe that is his principal motivation. Sometimes rich, powerful men just want to bang young women. It's really that simple.
What if he, in the contract, is to bring him to Mars? They're for his breakaway civilization.
I think it's
Elon, his whole plan is not to help humanity. It's literally he and a bunch of concubine are going to go to Mars.
Yes.
I mean, look, the guy's got, he's has no concerns about money, right?
Yeah.
And he has the ability to meet and interact with with women and he's impressive to women. So, I mean, look, whether or not his intent is to get out there and actually make as many babies as possible, or he's just careless about it, because what does it matter? I can go ahead and take care of this woman.
Elon Musk is careless.
That goes back to
that's the point. Then it's either he's careless and says, "Oh, it's fine if I do get this woman pregnant," or he's actually intentionally getting women pregnant.
That goes back to how he started this segment. I think for the conservative movement, it's just a bad look. I am very opposed to single motherhood like this. Very opposed to his example of a father. I'm putting that in quotes because he seems to only use one as a prop. I don't think it's a good look.
Is this about the conservative movement, or is this about not the left? Because we have been so, and I said this on Twitter a couple days ago, we have been so inundated with leftism. It's literally in the air. It's like being a fish in water. Everything is leftist. Even though the leftists will swear up and down that, we're right on the cusp of a Nazi takeover. We have been living in a leftist world for the better part of 40 years. The left has been controlling everything. And I think that people on the right, people that are conservative, religious, I think that they do not control the not left. They may actually have significant influence over the right. They may have a significant influence over the conservatives, but they don't have significant influence over the right more broadly, and they definitely don't have significant influence over the not left. And I think that Elon Musk and all that's going on doesn't fall under the conservative Christians or the conservative right. I think that it falls under the not left, and because of the world that we live in, everything that we see that is not left is knee-jerk said, oh, well, it's conservative right, but that's thinking like a leftist.
Maybe I should say then, being a present father should be bipartisan. I think setting an example of being
you're speaking
father.
of that from a conservative perspective.
I am, but it should be a thing that goes across the aisles.
Barack Obama was a super present father. That was one of the only things that I really loved about Barack Obama.
Those
was
kids have two fathers.
Yeah.
But I was gearing up to make the joke, but you got there before I could.
Sorry.
But I think that it would do the MAGA coalition or the new Republicans, however you want to phrase it, it would do them well to look at this as a situation that is not the conservative right. This is about the big tent, which is something that everybody acknowledges is necessary to continue to win elections. This is the big tent, right? And so if we're gonna, as a big tent movement, if we're gonna say, well, Ashley is not conservative, she's not a Christian, she's doing this wrong. If we're going to kick people out, or Musk is, if we're going to kick people out because they're not doing the things that a narrow group of people on the right want, then it is going to be a very, very short amount of time that this big tent has as a coalition.
It will collapse in on itself eventually.
Yeah.
And then people sacrificing their morals to allow it to be a big tent will eventually turn it on itself. There's many things I'm way against Trump on in terms of his stance on abortion now and propping up a lot of these people. That shouldn't take away from the things I do think I love Doge. This personal feelings aside, how I feel about him, as how I view his fatherhood, what I think it is. I love what he's doing with Doge. I just don't want to prop up people that I think are degenerate.
So this is something that I struggle with Elon, because he talks a lot about the fact that we are facing a real birth crisis, and it's 100% true. And I don't think that he's carrying around his child as a prop. I think it's great that he's showing that you can be a father, because I bring my kids to meetings all the time, and it's nice to see a father doing that. It makes it easier on me as a mother who does it. But I struggle with the other parts of it, the fact that he has other children who do not have a present father. And that is so critically important for you. You can bring children into this world, but they're not going to turn out okay if they don't have their dad.
He wants to put all of them in a compound in Texas. That's weird.
Wait, he said that?
There's an article. He bought a compound in Texas to put all the wives and the kids. I think maybe two of the women.
Like a little Muskville?
It's Big Love. It's Big Love.
Well, look, here's the reality. Andrew Tate tweeted something like, if you have if your children are all with one woman, you're weak or something like that.
Another degenerate.
Conqueror.
No,
I can't
you're not
stand
a
Andrew Tate.
conqueror.
But here's the issue. It's like
with you.
we know that kids who don't have dads grow up to do drugs and be impoverished and
Turn trans like one of Elon's kids.
No,
But it's just look, you need parents in your life.
Yep.
So I hope Elon figures that out. But I do agree with Phil largely that I think it's worthy of criticism. And we also at the same time recognize the Big Tent is going to have things like this in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you criticize it and say, look, Ashley has done well to help Trump and MAGA as an influencer. And so I'm a fan of all that. This is personal stuff that I think we have no problem criticizing. But at the same time, I don't know enough about it. I mean, I guess.
Expected with Maha, like a lot of people have come, like for the Big Ten stuff, that I'm for the Maha stuff. And there's personal things of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm like, ugh, but I love his ideas, right? So I'm willing to hear those out, and I like that they're being carried out hopefully soon.
Let's jump to this.
Yeah.
Let's jump to the story about Elon Musk that matters substantially more. Elon Musk cries fraud on 20 million in Social Security database over age 100. Why audits show few have taken benefits. I think, I'm not sure if I have the image actually pulled up. I think they have it here. Here you go.
Yeah.
Elon Musk says, according to the Social Security database, these are the numbers of people in each age bucket with death field set to false. Maybe Twilight is real and there are a lot of vampires collecting Social Security. I love how he put death field set to false because, there's a lot of people who don't know what that means. I know someone's going to comment right now on the show and be like, we know what that means to him. No, trust me. There's a bunch of 50-year-old moms who are like, death field set to false? What does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
You know what it means?
It's a gaming thing.
No, in coding, in Social Security database, it'll say death equals true, false. If death equals true, the person's dead. If death equals false, it means they're alive. So if the death field is set to false, it's saying that there's 120,807 people between the age of 160 and 169. Look at this. There's a bunch of 220-year-olds. What Elon Musk has found.
They're in the Senate probably.
I mean, look at this. There's 6 million 90 to 99-year-olds. There's 3 million 110 to 119-year-olds.
It's like 17 million that are over 100, right? Right? No, for real. I'm trying to count it in my head.
It's over 20. It's 23. So you've got...
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. 20. Is it 23? 23 million. 23 million over the age 100. The New York Post says... Elon tweets it, maybe Twilight is real. However, Musk's bombshell has long been known by the SSA, which released an audit in July of 23 showing that 18.9 million people listed as 100 years or older but not dead were in the database. Only 86,000 people living in the US at the time were actually centenarians, according to the census. So why do we have this? I mean, how is this possible?
So I used to be on Medicaid. I grew up very poor and my parents died when I was in my teens, so I was on Medicaid for a while. Would not wish it actually on anyone because it's a real pain. But I entered Medicaid because a van was parked outside my house and I showed them documents that didn't make mathematical sense. But I was I was 18 years old and I didn't know, they asked me for pay stubs or whatever. And I just sort of was like, here. And none of the math added up. And I was really panicked about it. And they didn't care. And they put me on Medicaid in New York State.
Boy.
And I mean, the math, I was getting paid under the table. And so I wasn't able to make my rent according to the pay stubs that I gave them. They never asked any questions. So then I was on Medicaid in New York. I was on Medicaid in New York for probably 10 years. I stopped submitting the paperwork to stay on it because I didn't need it anymore. And they just kept me on the rolls. I could not, it was Hotel California. I could not exit. I might still be on Medicaid in New York. I don't know. Someone can Google and figure it out.
They don't want to lose the benefit. They don't want to, yeah.
No. And so it was Hotel California staying on Medicaid in New York State. I imagine it's the same with all of these government programs, that why would anyone say, be honest and say, actually, I don't need my great grandmother's Social Security anymore. Thanks very much.
How do you cash it though?
I mean,
I suppose it's signed over. They're forging signatures.
Yeah, for the benefit of, it's so my mom died when I was 16, so I got Social Security benefits, and it was just signed into the name of my guardian at the time. And I imagine it's the same thing as it's someone who's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
If someone's listed as, as conservatorship or something like this.
Yeah.
Then
and my aunt actually stole all my Social Security money as a result.
Ugh.
that sounds like what Elon Musk is talking about, Social Security fraud.
Yeah. Sorry. And then I tried to get Social Security to investigate it because my aunt did commit Social Security fraud. And my caseworker, and I'm not being mean, I'm being serious, was was mentally retarded and couldn't understand anything. And I have notes that he wrote, and he was like, he had the reading level of like an 8-year-old probably. My 7-year-old writes better than this guy did. And I was like, why don't you just go to her house and ask her why she took my money? Did you try doing that? And he's like, I did, but she didn't answer the door, so case closed. Sorry. And that was it. My aunt made $23,000.
Think about it. You are a corrupt government official, and you want to make sure you cover your tracks. What do? You hire everybody in your department to be below average so that there's no actual way to deal with it. Because they're going to go to these investigators and these employees and be like, why didn't you stop this? And they go, stop what? Yeah. Well, this man's not 150. That money's going nowhere. Really? Yes, there's no one alive that's 150, but it says they're alive. Oh, my God. How do you deal with that? You can't do anything.
Yeah.
I wonder if they can cross-reference the people who are 150 and their voting records.
In Chicago, it'll be 100%.
Seriously.
It would be it would be really cool though if they were like, we looked into this and found that most of their addresses were in the sewer, and then they go down there and there's a bunch of Morlock 180-year-old pale people with white eyes. But we voted too.
They're in that mine that Elon's talking about.
So this might be a bit of an aside, but one of the things that I hear a lot of people criticizing Doge about is they're doing these audits, and there are a lot of people in government that say, oh, these audits are done every year, or these numbers are produced every year, and anyone can look them up and anyone can see them and stuff. And it's like, okay, so why is it acceptable that this waste continues to go on? And if it was known, why is it that no one's done anything about it? I mean, if it's such an obvious, simple thing, doesn't need to do this because it's audited and these numbers are produced and they're public knowledge and stuff, well, then why is it that nobody in the whole effing government, how come no one said, hey, we should stop doing this?
I like how the New York Post is like, they did an audit 2 years ago and they knew this already, and it's like, and they didn't fix it?
That's my exact point. Like, this is something that I've heard from multiple people. It's like, well, you know, they do this, and this is Musk doesn't need to do this stuff. This is all of everybody knows this, and everybody. Then you all should be fired.
Yeah.
Every last one of you should lose your job.
When I was on Medicaid, I had a dentist who charged Medicaid for something like 18 fillings. And I called Medicaid and I was like, but you realize I don't have that many teeth. It was like a crazy number of fillings that they charged.
You do, but not that many molars, right?
It was a crazy number of fillings. And I called to report the fraud, and they were like, yeah, he does charge a lot, huh? And I'm like, so why don't you do there's just no initiative, and but there's no. I mean, this is the problem with public sector. Where is the initiative? Where is the impulse to do anything about it? There's no.
I agree with you, but it blows. It does speak to that exact fact that not only does no one do anything about it, but when there's someone doing something about it, they think it's a defense to say, we knew about this. What are you talking about? You knew about this. How is this acceptable? It's because of things like Elon Musk doing this. And another thing that I'll mention that people might not be aware of, but this is not the first time this has happened. A program almost identical to this happened during the Clinton administration.
And during the Obama administration, too, actually.
Oh, was it during the... really? Okay.
Well, I don't know about the Clinton, but I know about during the Obama administration. I have a friend whose husband was working for the Obama White House doing this. He was Doge.
Yeah.
And, it was fine under Obama.
Yeah. But now it's fascism.
Yeah.
It's so tiring and ridiculous.
And my friend's husband was actually not even a government employee, similar to Elon. He was a contractor in a fellowship that was privately funded. It was literally Doge.
That's funny.
It's all so exhausting, but it speaks to the necessity of this. Yep. The way people are reacting, it shows that it is absolutely necessary, because it isn't going to get better. It's not like if this were done by a Democrat. I don't know that modern Democrats would do this the way that Barack Obama or Bill Clinton did, both of whom were Democrats, by the way, in case you've forgotten. I don't know that a modern Democrat would do that, considering they have had such total control over the slush fund.
Yeah.
But if they were to decide to do it, I don't know the results or the reactions would be any different. It would still be the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And it's better to do it now with an adversarial administration that's adversarial to all of Washington, thankfully.
I was in a cafe earlier today, and I literally heard two women talk. I believe they could have been witches. They were crying over USAID experiments being defunded, literally saying,
Thanks, Ian.
we were like, they were like, we wanted to know about certain animals and the experiments that were being done on them. Like, are you serious?
Well, those beagles, I mean,
Yeah, they're pro Fauci.
yeah, I mean the bagels, the beagles' faces aren't going to eat themselves. You know, you got to get the flies in there. That's what Fauci was doing.
Yeah, how are we gonna know what to put boosters in ourselves?
It is wild that I think all of this fraud stuff in Doge proves there's a zombie cult, and then there's regular, sane, normal people. That the Democratic Party is largely zombie cultist because you have, we'll get into it in a little bit, but you had that woman on CBS say Hitler weaponized free speech to do a genocide, and it's like, whoa. Marco Rubio was like, I have, shout out to Rubio for pushing back. If it were me on there, I would just started yelling like, "What?"
I have thoughts.
I would have been dumbfounded. I really would have. And it's funny because after they spent like 2.5 weeks calling Elon Musk a Nazi because he went like this, and I'm going to be called a Nazi for doing that, and I'm an Orthodox Jew.
It's okay, those are your left arm.
Oh, okay. So it's like,
But so the issue is, these are people who claim that conservatives want to ban books from schools, just like the Nazis burned books.
Yeah.
But also the Nazis were in favor of free speech at the same time. It's like, look, you don't need that example because y'all have been watching the show and you get it already. But not a day goes by we don't get another psychotic example of they will say whatever they literally have to say to fit in with the opposite. It is, Look, you know what it is? It's bizarro America, right? You've got Superman, and he's strong for, he stands for truth, justice, and the American way. Get out of here, modern woke stupid movies. And then you have Bizarro, who talks backwards and sounds like a moron and is really weird. And that's just it. Whatever the opposite of America is, they do.
Yeah.
So when we're like, we like free speech, so did Hitler. No, he didn't. He burned books, just like you did, you Nazis. It's like, what?
It's exhausting, but it speaks to the fact that the left doesn't actually believe things. To them, every exercise they do is an attempt at a power grab. They will take whatever you consider important and they will twist it to use it against you. I saw a Twitter account that's a leftist, and he's a dirty commie, and he straight up says, he's like, oh, we're in a constitutional crisis, et cetera, and it was very simple to find a tweet from him where he just was like, the Constitution doesn't matter, everything is blah blah blah, and it's like, you don't care about anything other than power. They will take what you believe in, and they do it to Christians all the time. I'm agnostic, but you see them do it to Christians all the time. Well, Jesus would have done this, and Jesus would have done, and it's like, you don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. Yeah. You don't believe that Jesus was anything other than a dude. You are only doing this as a means to exercise power over someone, and you are vile because of it.
Yeah,
they don't believe in anything.
This was the thing that infuriated me about the Elon Musk stuff with the Nazi salute. They weaponized anti-Semitism while completely remaining silent about anti-Semitism in every other circumstance for the last 16 months. And they're weaponizing this free speech stuff with Marco Rubio, and that's what the Nazis did. I'm sorry. Now we care about the Nazis because they bring up all of this stuff only when it's convenient.
I want to point out one thing that communists have done forever is call everyone they disagree with a Nazi. That is standard playbook.
I believe Yuri Bezmenov pointed out, and it was also in Rules for Radicals, wasn't it?
Yeah,
call them Goldberg too.
Call them,
accuse your enemy. That is what you are doing, or something.
It's something that most people should understand. When they're calling you a Nazi, it's because they're trying to exercise power over you. Yep. It's not that they believe that you're actually a Nazi. And if someone's calling you a Nazi when you're clearly doing something that is not Nazi-like endorsing free speech, it's because they're a commie.
So I wrote a column like 7 years ago, and the headline was maybe it's time to befriend neo-Nazis. And the whole point of the column was basically you turn people away from hate by embracing them and treating them as human beings and showing them your own humanity. But the headline is kind of clickbait. And I have had that headline screenshot and thrown at me literally 10,000 times. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I have been called a Nazi more times than I can
by people who are not Jewish and don't know anything about Germany. And well, let's jump to this story here. This is big news that broke earlier. Delta plane crashes and overturns while landing at Toronto Airport.
Blame Canada. Blame Canada.
At least 18 people were injured, officials said. 2 passengers, including a pediatric patient, were in critical condition but were expected to survive. So we have images. This is pretty brutal. Now, there's no life-threatening injuries. I'm glad to see that everyone's safe and okay. Of course, these are always quite horrifying. However, the story is now basically they're blaming Elon Musk and Donald Trump, despite the fact this was in Canada, over DEI and firings at the FAA. We have this from the AP. Trump begins firings of FAA staff just weeks after fatal DC plane crash. And then I think we have this here. Oh, so this is the actual video. And then I thought I had another tweet pulled up on this one. I guess I don't. Basically, where they're saying, despite the fact this was in Canada, we really got to call out Trump and Elon over the firings of the FAA because, this is their fault. So here's the question. All last year, prominent conservative voices were warning with all the DEI pushes, and not even this, like 2 years ago. Charlie Kirk got attacked by Democrats because he said something to the effect of, like when he goes into a plane, the last thing he wants to be worrying about is the race of the pilot. And he's like, and then you notice that you've got 2 black pilots and you're wondering, did they hire the best people or did they hire people just based on their race? They said, oh, how racist of you for saying that. How dare you? And Charlie's point was he doesn't want race to be the predicate for his feelings on the pilots, but he knows these companies are using race as the criteria instead of capability of flying a plane. Well, Donald Trump gets in. It's been 3 weeks. It's been we're close to a month now. And Democrats are coming out saying, aha, it's Trump's fault all of these plane crashes are happening because he's trying to get rid of DEI.
I'm going to blame Trudeau. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
It's Trudeau's fault.
I'm going to blame 70-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, it was so windy today, dude.
Yeah.
Whoa, what? Yeah. And it was windy here and there.
Yeah, look at the pictures. The place is covered in snow. Yeah. It was super windy. I mean, it sucks. The only reason I made that joke and sang the song is I know no one died, so it was okay to make light of it a little bit. But
the runway is covered in snow.
How did it flip over?
That's
wild.
If I understand correctly, there was really strong winds, and if a wind catches a wing,
So I mean, it was horrible after the DC crash that happened a month ago. There was a lot of people who said it was only a matter of time. There was a lot of warning signs. I think it actually makes the argument for DOJ and makes the argument for firings and revamping of the FAA because they knew that this was only a matter of time in DC. Obviously, we don't know what happened here, but it's time. It's before it's too late and before more, innocent people die.
They're saying that Trump and Elon going into the FAA and firing people is what's causing this. Because these people don't understand long-term change. Yeah. Democrats are based on short-term gratification. If you do it now, it happens now. Unless it's per their excuse, Trump is receiving the benefits of the Biden economy or whatever. Or Biden's economy was bad because it was Trump's fault. It's whatever is politically advantageous. In this regard, though, I think it's fair to say you don't get a series of plane crashes 3 weeks into policy change.
Yeah.
So we saw that there was with the DC plane crash, they had been complaining for years about flying helicopters in a landing path. Mm-hmm. That's not anything Trump was doing during the Biden administration.
There is something that we've been talking about for at least year and a half or so on the show, and it's a crisis of competence. We've been saying this is going to happen, that there's going to be problems because you cannot help but have people that are not as qualified as necessary filling these jobs when you make the criteria anything other than who is the most qualified. You have these jobs like, being an air traffic controller, they're hard. Mm-hmm. And the idea that the left has, that anyone can do these things, that people are just cogs in a machine and you can replace one cog with another and there will be no negative results. That is wrong. That is plain wrong. That is not true. And the results that you get from that are deaths. When you have people that are unqualified to do things like being an air traffic controller or design bridges or any number of engineering things, any number of real world things, be a firefighter. These kind of things take people that are not just qualified, but capable of doing them. And if you don't have some form of testing to make sure that the people that you're hiring actually can do the job, or if you put any other criteria above their ability when it comes to deciding who is hired, you end up with dead people.
Yo, it's like, to add to that, I believe in the incompetence clearly. But I also think a lot of these big industries are cutting corners. Like I bring up East Palestine last time we talked about the other plane crash, and they were cutting corners by lowering the inspection rates for each train car from 90 seconds to 30 seconds. And then the people who showed up, like each train,
Which train are you talking about? The
East Palestine.
Oh yes, okay.
So like they were inspected way less than they should have been. The sensors weren't working right. The people observing the sensors for the burning wheels weren't working right. And then when the train did derail, the people that showed up didn't have to blow it up. They just thought they should blow it up. And that literally destroyed that town. So I think they're cutting corners plus incompetence, and that's how we're getting all these dead bodies.
We actually satirized it on Cast Castle. The gag we had was Chris and Chuck were trying to move a barrel of vinyl chloride, and then they accidentally spill it, and then Chris is like, "Oh crap, we're gonna get in so much trouble. What do we do?" And then Chuck goes, "Burn it." But the joke was that's kind of what we felt they were doing. When they see this chemical spilling out, they're like, "Oh crap, this is gonna poison the ground and just destroy this town. What do we do?" And they're like, "Set it on fire." And so they just lit it up.
That's what they did. And we know they didn't have to do it.
I think a lot of these people view everything as a jobs program, and so
Yes.
you can't fire these people. They need the job. I mean, the 60 Minutes piece, was it yesterday? It was funny because they thought they portrayed these people as USAID employees, but actually they were like political appointees who were going to lose their job regardless. But like. All of these people think that they deserve jobs. I mean, that's the problem with our entire school districts. It's incompetency. I don't think it's as much the indoctrination is just total incompetence. And I'm wondering now, fast forward a year and a half from now, when all of these incompetent people lose their jobs, what are we going to do with them? There's a lot of really stupid people.
Have you guys ever seen the plane crash test video, which breaks down the safest place of a plane to be in?
Yeah.
And you know what the least safe seats in a plane are?
Up
First
front.
class.
First class, baby. The most likely. So I believe the mortality rate in a crash, like a substantial crash, like if the plane hits the ground, first class is just 0%.
Yeah.
And then those that are sitting all the way in the back by the tail in the toilets, it's like 90%.
I'm fine. That's always where they put me because I have to buy 8 tickets, and the only place they'll ever put us is next to the toilet.
Me, I'm sitting up front, first class with my feet up. Like if this baby goes down, I'm first out. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
But at
gotta
least
have 6 kids.
At least I get a glass, actual glass with sparkling water and some lime juice.
There you go. I get
down,
my feet on.
Go down in style.
Yeah, they give you actual metal flatware in first class. Yeah, that's right. I was actually surprised they gave people a knife and a fork, considering they won't let you have shampoo.
My 3-year-old
Yeah.
urinated on me last time I flew. So
Congratulations.
we have different experiences when we fly.
Biowarfare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, I do think it's fair to say that we were always going to go into the valley of death. Like with all of these jobs and the DEI stuff, it was we did not reach critical failure point. And imagine this. The plane is going down. That's the Biden administration. It hits the water, and we think it's all over. But then it shoots up out of the water with Trump flying it. I hope that's what happened. And we're like, how did that happen?
It's when he got shot in the head and he stands up and yells, "Fight!" That's where we're at right now.
It's pretty amazing. I can't deny that. I mean, I do think that there is a significant possibility that there could be really, really great things that come from all the changes at at these vital, these vital institutions like the FAA. But I do think that it's not going to happen fast, and the crisis of competence that we have been warning about, we're seeing now.
Yeah.
The reason that I think that we haven't seen more tragedies when it comes to air travel is because flying is just that safe.
Yeah.
Like it is if I understand correctly, there are redundancies on redundancies. And when there's an accident, it's multiple people make a mistake. Like the crash at DCA was a fluke. I mean, what I mean is it was not that there was a problem with either of the vehicles. It was man-made. It was not an accident because of the plane or the helicopter. It was because of, if I understand correctly, it was because of miscommunication between the pilot of the helicopter and the ground crew, and that was because there's supposed to be two people and there was only one.
But the number of near misses that happened at DCA, if you go through the history of like near miss accidents, was shockingly terrifying. I feel like it was only a matter of time. Honestly.
Between planes,
people have been warning about
it,
and not just that, but like planes go. DCA is like a really unsafe airport. Actually,
I don't like going there.
I mean, I love it because it's so convenient.
Yeah.
But it was actually interesting. I was talking to my friend, and she said that a lot of these direct flights that are scheduled out of DCA are because senators are lobbying DCA to have direct flights back to their home districts. And so it's like an artificially actually very unsafe area. But I looked at the history of like near misses at DCA, and DCA is a uniquely terribly unsafe.
Let's jump to this story from Yahoo. They deserve a long prison sentence. Musk joins Trump in trashing 60 Minutes. Well, they're liars, for one thing. Elon Musk has come around to his boss's way of thinking, trashing CBS 60 Minutes, saying the team behind the program deserves to be jailed. Musk's dander was up after the long-running news magazine shared a promotion of their segment on the proposed slashing of federal funding for USAID. Reporter Scott Pelley began the segment wondering how serious President Donald Trump is in defiance of the Constitution. In a later clip, a Republican former administrator of the aid agency, you see how they play that game, denied Musk's claim of widespread waste. 60 Minutes are the biggest liars in the world. They engaged in deliberate deception to interfere with the last election, he wrote. They deserve a long prison sentence. That was Elon Musk. Now, the fascinating thing is, in this 60 Minutes show, they interviewed a woman, and actually, I should pull this tweet up, where they used presumptive language to make you believe she worked for USAID. They said this woman got fired in the recent chaos around USAID, when in fact she worked for, according to reports, I believe this was Mario Nawfal reporting. They actually, I have the video from myself, but I want to pull one up. They worked for a speech writing company. Actually, here's the easiest thing I can find. Literally me from my morning show, but I'll pull up the tweet instead of having my own voice play. So Mario Nawfal tweeted, 60 Minutes claimed Christina Dry was fired this month in the chaotic shutdown of USAID. What they didn't tell you, Christina wasn't a USAID employee. She worked for XLA and Jefferson Partners, providing speechwriting services for USAID Administrator Samantha Power, who resigned. Another day, another half-truth on prime time. Well, Mario, I'd go as far to say it's an outright lie. They said that she got fired in the chaos or whatever it was because they wanted people to make the assumption she was an employee when they didn't actually have one.
I think it's funny because they did that to portray her as the victim of Doge and everything. But it actually, in my Twitter circles, and obviously I live in a bubble, but it really infuriated people because it's like, oh, welcome to the real world and where you don't have total job security. Yeah. Like, welcome to the rest of us. And I think about like the cheerleading that all of these leftists did during COVID about locking the government down for 2 straight freaking years. And then all of a sudden, like, people need their jobs. Like, where were you in 2020 and 2021 talking about livelihoods?
Probably screaming defund everything.
Yeah, these people have no idea how the average person looks at them. No. There was a tweet that I saw the other day, and I couldn't help but retweet it and say, and it was about this, I'm pretty sure. And they had no idea that the average person looks at the bureaucracy with complete contempt. Mm-hmm. Only the most committed politicos and Democrat operatives and activists defend these people. Every other normal, right-thinking person hates the bureaucracy because they know that they're millionaires because they work for the government, even though they should only be making like 150 grand a year. But go ahead.
If you look at the property values around Washington, D.C., it's bonkers.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
It's like the 10 most rich counties in the country. 9 of them are here.
So we were just talking about
Loudoun County is number 1 with the highest median income. But I think in the top like 50 counties, like the top 10 are, or it's like there's like 10 in the top 20 or something. They're all surrounding DC.
We were just talking about DCA, and I tend to go out that way a lot. And if you go from here to DCA and you go straight through Langley, go right by CIA, there are some of the most palatial and opulent homes that I have ever seen in my life. They're not rock stars. They're not movie stars. They're not doing anything that the average person is aware of. They're lobbyists. They're working for the government. When I say opulent, I mean opulent. Like literally just they look like palatial. They look like something you would imagine that royalty in England would some lord or lady would be living in. It is absolutely offensive.
There's a Twitter account that I've been like guilt following for the last couple days of all these houses that are going up for sale in the DC area, and he's linking the house to the individual who owns it and just says their job. And it's nuts. It's really nuts. It's like $2.3 million lobbyists for this, because I drive through these neighborhoods and I'm like, what do these people do?
Yeah.
Oh, you've driven through McLean?
Yeah.
Everywhere in this area.
This should be a tour. Like, if you ever go to visit D.C., make sure you have time to get a nice tour bus through McLean so you can look at the capital city of the Hunger Games. That no question. I mean, it's fascinating. The Hunger Games series is a bit childish. No disrespect, but is not meant to be the most sophisticated. But it's fascinating how the metaphor. Just like the direct storyline is. There's all these districts, and they're from very poor to very rich, and the capital does nothing. They literally just control everything and keep the other keep the districts suppressed and enslave the main character's district to do coal mining or whatever. It's basically Appalachia. Actually go to DC, and you're like, ain't wrong. These people are dressed in ridiculous clothing. First of all, you know what I really hate about DC? Everybody just wears North Face, and it's been that way for a long time. You go to New York and everyone's got some weird fashion hipster thing going on. They're probably wearing Supreme. You go to DC, it's all North Face. That's their uniform or suits. But you go to the areas out surrounding DC, like Loudoun County, and it is modern day like nobility.
Yeah.
These are people who don't do anything. They get government contracts that make no sense, and they're rich for the sake of being rich.
Do you think these people stay? Are they fleeing the city? Do they see it as an occupied city now?
The reports are that they're fleeing and it's all collapsing.
Good.
I do have that story pulled up. We'll get more in depth on it in a bit, though. The core of our story now was that the media is still desperately trying to lie, and that's what 60 Minutes is doing, because the corporate press is an instrument of the establishment. At this point, someone super chatted that the Trump era follows Star Wars perfectly. Trump, A New Hope. Biden, The Empire Strikes Back, and now we're in The Return of the Orange Man. What comes next would be like The Force Awakens, I guess. So it does, but think about this. It's interesting. I think Star Wars is largely garbage at this point. They destroyed the written canon. They got rid of it all, and then Disney made a bunch of garbage. But I digress. Where Star Wars goes after Return of the Jedi is the remnants of the Empire form the First Order, which is this militant, stateless entity that is still trying to regain control of the governments. Kind of what they're doing. I mean, Trump has crushed the deep state. He's gutting their funding, but the remnants are still trying to claw back to some degree, some kind of power.
They're going to lash back. I feel like they've receded into the shadows and are...
This is Trump's march to the sea, though, bro.
Yeah. Oh, it feels like it for sure.
The USAID gutting, the IRS, all of these institutions getting their funding ripped to shreds. He is destroying their ability to wage administrative war.
Yeah.
The Democrats are still trying to get their feet underneath them. They're still they're in disarray. And I think that as long as they are having this war in the Democrat Party, which they're going to have for a while, because it's not clear what the Democrats are going to do. Are the Democrats going to coalesce around the extreme far left, who has been setting the tone for not just the Democrats but for the whole country for the past 10 years? You know, as long as there has been a demand for you to call a trans woman she, as opposed to saying he, as long as that has been a demand that people have had to actually comply with, that's how long the crazy far left has been in charge and totally in charge of the Democrat Party. There are people in the Democrat Party that have now come out and said this will continue to make us lose, because the average person does not believe this. They do not agree, and they've started to say we reject this. And as long as the average person, again, the not left, it doesn't have to be the right, it's just the not left. As long as you're trying to make the normal people that want to be left alone, as long as you're saying you have to call a trans woman she, then they're going to reject it. And the reason is because every dude knows that at some point the demand will be you must date a trans woman or you're a bigot. If you reject a trans, because that is a narrative that comes out of the trans community now. And if they are in control, they will shove that down the average person's throat, and no one wants that.
They just
Lesbian women,
trans man as a DNC chair.
yeah,
David Hogg.
yeah. Lesbian women do not want penises. That's absolutely true. And yet there are trans women that call themselves lesbians that say, oh, if you reject me, you're a bigot. Straight men do not want penises, and there are trans women that say, if you will not date me, you're a bigot. Those people have been in control of the narrative, and as long as they're in control of the narrative, the Democrats are not going to be able to convince the average person.
Oh, yeah.
Let's jump to this next story from CBS News. Germany is prosecuting online trolls. Here's how the country is fighting hate speech on the internet. Sure, here you go.
6:01 on a Tuesday morning. And we were with state police as they raided this apartment in northwest Germany.
Hier ist die Polizei, wir müssen bitte mal mit Ihnen reden.
Inside, 6 armed officers searched a suspect's home, then seized his laptop and cell phone. Prosecutors say those electronics may have been used to commit a crime. The crime, posting a racist cartoon online.
Stasi.
At the exact same time across Germany,
So, wir haben einen Durchsuchungsbeschluss für diese Wohnung.
more than 50 similar raids played out. Part of what prosecutors say is a coordinated effort to curb online hate speech in Germany.
So I want to play this clip for you.
It's illegal to display
Let me pull this here tweet in.
Nazi symbolism, a swastika, or deny the Holocaust. That's clear. Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
That sticks around forever.
yeah.
Or a
The
politician.
prosecutors explain German law also prohibits the spread of malicious gossip, violent threats, and fake quotes.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
The punishment for breaking hate speech laws can include jail time for repeat offenders. But in most cases, a judge levies a stiff fine and sometimes keeps their devices.
How do people react when you take their phones from them?
They are shocked. It's a kind of punishment if you lose your smartphone. It's even worse than the fine you have to pay.
D-Day 2, everybody. It's time to reinvade Germany.
Sickening.
I got one more for you because, sure, my friends, what is this segment really? We're telling you that Germany sucks. It's about what they wanted to do to us. In this tweet that I posted, An individual on X who goes by Conspiratorial Templates and retweeted by Jess Margera, brother of Bam Margera. You know him.
Oh, yeah.
He's the drummer for a band called CKY. He's famous. This man tweets, if we make this happen in America, the entire right side of the political spectrum will collapse within days. When they tell you who they are, believe them.
So our bass player, the bass player of All That Remains, used to be in a band with that guy.
With Jess?
Yeah. He was in CKY.
He was in CK. I love
Matt was in
CKY though.
Yeah.
Jess says he's not famous, and I'm like, bro, I know who you are. Like,
Well,
I rock CKY all the time.
yeah. Well, he
Jess is a great person.
He is in no position.
oh, Jess has gone off the deep end.
He is in no position to be saying things like that. He is in absolutely no position.
Well, this is the thing.
Typical like male feminist type
So
situation.
listen. They're saying it's a quote tweet. 60 Minutes says posting or reposting false information in Germany can be a crime. Jess Margera retweeting this. So he locked his account. I followed him for a while because I've been a CKY fan. I can actually play some CKY songs. I can play 96 Quite Bitter Beings, of course. What 35-year-old, 30 to 40-year-old skateboarder doesn't know that song? And he posts nothing but fake news all day. Like just unhinged, weird blue anon conspiracy stuff. Wow. They don't realize, and this is the point. We know how the liberals think. They don't know how we think. And I say the liberals. I wouldn't consider. I don't know. I don't think Phil's a conservative. I wouldn't consider myself a conservative, but certainly by today's standards, we are all as conservative as this country is on average, I suppose, because the far left is the antithesis of whatever America is.
I wonder if Jess has like a J. Sweet Charlie Hebdo post from 10 years ago, because these Germans, the way they're talking, it's like a state-sanctioned approval of the attack on Charlie Hebdo, not to the violent degree, but they're so against offensive speech that they're willing to ruin your life.
Well, not only ruin your life, I mean, they're willing to destroy their society.
Yeah.
Mark Anderson on Joe Rogan was really chilling about like why he ended up supporting Donald Trump, because he basically said, he was like, this was the election to save democracy. And it was funny. One of my favorite anecdotes from election night was in Pennsylvania, they were doing exit polling of people and they asked, why did you vote the way you did? And they didn't say who they voted for, but the people who said, I'm voting to save democracy, all the Democrats that I follow on Twitter were like, yes, yes. And then the exit poll, all the crosstabs came out, and the people who voted to save democracy voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it was very clear to anyone that was, again, not ideologically captured by the left.
Yeah.
People that were just normal, that were politically marginally engaged, that the things that the Democrats want were completely antithetical to anything that you would consider liberal, right? So there's the colloquial liberalism that we use in the United States, which Rush Limbaugh ruined that word in the 90s, and it's confusing and a pain in the butt. But the progressives in the United States have destroyed liberalism. They're no friend to liberal policies, and by liberal I mean liberal in the classical sense. They're no friend to free speech. Clearly, the freedom of speech is not something that they care about. They obviously have. If they don't care about the freedom of speech, they definitely don't care about property rights. And so property rights is something that I harp on, because property rights are literally the foundation of your society. If you do not have a government that protects property rights, then you don't have investment, and you have a failed economy, and you are just months away from famine and starvation.
The Democrats, before I left New York, the state Democrats were trying to pass a bill where they could take you out of your house, remove you if you are a threat, a health threat. Didn't pass, and they've been trying to pass it for years.
I remember. That was crazy because people didn't believe it was real.
Yep.
There was a state law in New York that said that if you were at risk of like infection or whatever, they could take you from your home by force and put you in an institution. And it was so crazy that it sounded like it was fake. And then it was like, actually, they've been trying to do that for a while.
At least the Chinese, like they weld your home shut. At least you stay at home, right?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I didn't watch all of it, but JD Vance just gave a really great speech. It was good, Munich, and it was I like basically just a masterclass in like this is what normal civilization believes in, and this is the future of how we survive as a civilization, not just as a country. I had a reporter come to my house a couple months ago from Germany, from like one of these big German magazines, because she wanted to interview homeschool moms. I homeschool my kids, and I have 6 of them, so I'm already like the super weirdo for her. And she just could not wrap her brain around it. She's like, but how is this legal to have the freedom to do what you want with your own children?
That's remarkable. That's such a,
And I spent 2.5 hours with her. I could not explain it.
No, but just you call her a Nazi. But I mean, I'm not joking. I'd be like, what I would literally say to a person who said that to me, I'd say, well, I suppose as a Nazi, you probably don't understand the freedoms we have in this country and what we fought and why we fought you guys. And then she'd be like, oh, I'm not a Nazi, and be like, then I would act equally as stupid and confused, be like, but you don't believe in freedom, just like the Nazis, and you think the government should control everything, just like the Nazis. How are you not a Nazi? And then she'd freak out.
It's like
because
they
you're not
have
smart enough.
applied Nazism over there. They just don't realize it's embedded itself into the
Yo, it is
culture.
wild. They're like the way they laughed about seizing people's devices. I'm just like, I hope, you know what, man? I saw the rumor going around that Trump wants to get us out of NATO, and I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, you know, maybe it's a big ask. I don't know how heavy we want to be. Make them pay their fair share. Maybe get less aggressive. NATO's fine to a certain degree. Now I'm just like, after that, Germany's got to pay.
yeah.
Like I don't accept them as a Western ally of ours. Sure. I look at Saudi Arabia and we all grumble when we're like doing oil deals with Saudi Arabia. We don't praise them for their cultural beliefs and endeavors. Germany, same thing. Backwards. These countries in Europe are backwards.
Absolutely.
They're going to get taken over again with that kind of culture.
Well, they're not. They're going to be taken over by the left in their own country. It's
They're going to be.
Well, yes, they have been taken over by the left in their own country, and that's part of what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. We live in a world that is steeped in leftism. I tweeted this the other night. Maybe the Berlin Wall was actually good. Maybe
seems like East Germany won.
Rebuild the wall.
It kept them. Rebuild the wall. It kept things like maybe the Iron Curtain was good. You know, because at least it wasn't infecting the rest of the world. It seems that with the fall of the fall of communism, actually just allowed it to seep into the rest of the West.
Olaf Scholz, rebuild that wall. I did have to Google who the current chancellor of Germany was.
I was really impressed with you just now. I was like, I didn't know that name.
I was like, after Angela Merkel, I got no idea what's happening in that country.
Right?
I'm so glad.
I know that Pop-Tarts are illegal.
What?
Yeah, Pop-Tarts are illegal.
Too free.
So one of our skaters here at the Boonies is it could be Germany or Austria, I don't know, but she was telling us how Pop-Tarts are illegal, and then we all made the joke like if you're slinging Pop-Tarts in an alley and you get caught. No, like they're not going to arrest you for it. It's just not legal to sell at markets and stuff, or like because of the chemicals and the products that are in it.
Fair enough.
And I was just like,
Very Maha.
That's it. They've gone too far.
Took the Pop-Tarts off the shelves.
I mean, well, look, there's a big question in that. I mean, do we want to make Pop-Tarts illegal? Or I don't think anybody wants to make Pop-Tarts illegal. We just want people to be better informed, and there's certain things that shouldn't be in them. But there's a question there of, do we go the Bloomberg route where he said poor people are too stupid, so we should decide for them what to eat? Or do we just say if you want to have a liter of cola and a quadruple Big Mac, do whatever you want? The problem then is people just gorge themselves till they die and then demand free health care. So it's like, yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Which one do you do?
So I think of the Fruity Pebbles. I think it was or Fruit Loops. What was the New York Times hit piece on?
It was Fruit Loops.
It was Fruit Loops against RFK. Where they're like, he complains so unnecessarily, and then they gave the example of Fruit Loops in Canada versus here, and I'm like, well, I just want Canadian Fruit Loops now.
Well, because Canadian Fruit Loops are colored with carrot and blueberries.
Beets.
And beets, and American Fruit Loops are like insert word you can't pronounce here.
Fentanyl?
That's all I wanted. And it's frustrating actually as a parent because they throttle formula so that the like only good formula that you can get for a baby is from Europe, and they don't allow you to import it. Like
we were smuggling some in.
So
I know.
How do you
First
get it?
child.
You have to smuggle.
Yeah.
How do you smuggle it? Go there and get it?
No, you.
I know people who know people.
No, you have to like order from European companies who will just send it in an unmarked box. Like it's really crazy.
Have you noticed though that some of those really good brands were bought by bigger corporations and the ingredients changed?
Yes.
So the ones you thought were good are now bad. It's so messed up.
Yeah. No,
It's
I
so
mean,
messed up.
and we were facing this during. I've always breastfed my kids, so I've mostly been able to avoid it, thank God. But like, we saw this during the formula crisis where people were trying to get formula from Europe because we didn't have any in America, and they're like, no, you can't import formula from Europe because we don't know it's safe. And it's like, well, but you don't have any on the shelf here.
You know what's crazy though is like human civilization used to have wet nurses. Like if the mother didn't have enough food for the baby, you just ask a different mother who had too much food for her baby. But that's like unthinkable these days.
Yeah.
Human civilization is mechanizing to the point where
during the formula shortage, I did know moms who were sharing breast milk.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that can be dangerous though, because like if you have an infection, if you have a virus, personally I would do formula over some unknown woman's milk.
But think about what formula is. Like you're literally concocting a formula to give baby.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bad stuff in the formula in this country.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Not surprising.
It was crazy to me when that happened because I did not know this. Where it was just like, some moms don't have milk, so they need formula. And I'm like, they need a chemical concoction of nutrient-dense sludge to give the baby? How did humans survive for hundreds of thousands of years?
When my
wet nurses.
When my grandma gave birth to my mom in the late 50s, a doctor went around the hospital and gave every woman a pill to dry up their milk.
What?
Promoted formula.
Yeah.
There's a whole generation of people raised on formula and not breast milk because they said it was kind of like a poor thing to do.
Yeah.
That's how they sold it. That was propaganda.
Yeah. So on my podcast, I do the Mom Wars with a British woman named Cara Kennedy, and she said still in Europe they people still do the formula, and she said on the podcast last night, she's like, that's not what we do from where I'm from, and I was like, really? I thought that was wild.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Let's jump to this next story from the Post Millennial. David Hogg under fire from fellow Democrats for using DNC contact list to fundraise for personal PAC.
Oops.
David, it's not been 2 weeks and you're already embroiled in a corruption scandal. I am impressed. I was saying all morning, this guy, I love David Hogg. He's got cojones.
Let's get him for president.
Yo, let me tell you. He makes Joe Biden look like a baby kitten. Well, I mean, maybe that's his old age and his inability to walk or open his eyes. But David Hogg gets in the DNC as vice chair. First thing he does is he goes to their DNC contact list and sends all of those people a request for money for himself personally for his personal political action. I'm so impressed by his gall.
It's chutzpah.
Yeah, it really is impressive, and I'm equally as excited about this because the damage he is doing to the Democrat brand is insurmountable. At this pace, we're going to win the midterms.
Yeah, it's not just the brand; it's also he's decided to enrich himself over promoting the DNC, and I support him wholeheartedly.
Me too. Look, let me say this: there are two battleships on the great ocean of politics. There is the elephant, and there is the jackass. And David Hogg is on his ship as we watch it sinking, and we're like, me oh my, the Democrat ship is sinking. Heavens, what's happening? A bunch of people are boarding it. We see this little dinghy jump on, and we're like, perhaps they'll begin repairs. So we start telling all of our troops, get ready, because in 18 months, we are going to have a midterm battle, your life. And then we look over, and the ship with David Hogg is just looting everything. And we're like, wait, the fires aren't being put out. They're looting what's left. I think we're good.
David Hogg is doing what the Democrats do best, build a platform out of dead children and profit off of it.
He's looting the corpse of the DNC.
That's all they do. All they do.
They're mad at him. Even I feel bad for Cameron Kasky because he's been all right. You know, he's another one of these kids who came out of the Parkland thing. Parkland. He says, quote, I mean, it's just very frustrating to be in a party in desperate need of increased accountability for our struggling leadership and watch someone who was never held accountable ascend to leadership.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And also, can I just be petty for a moment?
Yes.
Who was also a Stoneman Douglas survivor. Cameron actually was a Stoneman Douglas survivor, and David Hogg wasn't.
Yeah, David Hogg was he just went there. He wasn't there that day, and
I believe he was there early and left.
Yeah. He was not there when the actual shooting was.
He was. I believe I could be wrong. Maybe you're right, but my understanding was he was nowhere near where the shooting took place, but he was at school.
He was in another building in campus.
He was in a different building. Yeah. He went home, and then when he heard that the press was doing interviews, he jumped on his bike and rode as fast as he could to the school to give interviews.
Yeah.
This is my golden ticket.
He injected himself into it.
Yep.
But come on, I just want to say it again. Like, the Democratic Party is on fire, and they're screaming, help us, help us. And David Hogg goes, I'll save you, runs in, grabs a bunch of money, and runs out the door. And they're just like, where's he going?
It's on brand. This is how he ascended to where he is now. So I think he's great, and I think that he's a wonderful future for the
I hope
Democratic
it helps
Party.
his pillow sales.
What if he's been a Republican the whole time, and he's like, he's just like,
plan.
I am going to cause so much damage to the Democrat brand, Republicans will win for the next 10 elections.
That'd be sick.
Because, I mean, come on, like, look at what he's doing.
Yeah, he's a good.
But they are that
No sane
retarded.
person thinks that guy's a Democrat. He may not be a Republican, but he's not a Democrat.
Yeah.
He's like a con man. You know what I mean? He's just selling the grift.
He is definitely a con man.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Like a test tube version of Beto O'Rourke.
He's built in a lab, and they're like, he will be able to grift and destroy the Democrats once and by Republicans.
S2 version of Beto O'Rourke.
The Koch brothers had been incubating him for some time, ready to unleash him as a sleeper agent against the DNC.
Took all the worst things about Beto and put into one person.
Condense it to that, yeah.
I'm not a fan of David Hogg. I think that he's terrible. I think that the Democrats got what they deserved by him being the vice chair of the DNC. Who was the last vice chair? Who did he replace?
I think, didn't they do 3 vice chair or whatever?
Oh,
Wasn't
really?
I thought the story was that, like, they agreed there had to be, a woman, a person of color.
Was it?
Was that what it was?
I hope you're right, because that just,
It does sound right.
that's
on
just
brand.
perfect.
I could be wrong about that.
If it wasn't for this, it was for another thing they had, where they needed to like have everyone represented.
Yeah, okay, no, there are several vice chairs. The current chair is Ken Martin, and then vice chair is Raina Walters Morgan, Malcolm Kenyatta, Artie Blanco, and David Hogg.
Wow.
So yeah, well there you
He's-
go.
He's bad.
Deputy chairs.
He's really, really bad.
Oh wow, look how far back in time you can go. Look at all these different chairs of the
Look at
Democratic
the
Party.
de-evolution to David Hogg. Can we do that?
The de-evolution.
Like the vice chair's de-evolution down to.
Howard
Tim Kaine.
and Tim Kaine.
There's Donna Brazil. Everyone was very excited about that.
Ken Martin.
Ken Martin, good luck, sir. You got a lot cut out
He's
for
a
you.
white man, though. That's
Robert
we gotta
McLean.
Get on that.
They had a lot of slave owners.
Yeah, sick haircuts,
Yeah, back in the day.
man.
Back in
I
the
can't believe they have a white man at the top. That's really very shameful. They should definitely fix that right away.
I don't want them to fix anything.
blackface?
I think it's awesome.
I want to find the story about how they. Cause someone told me that they had a requirement that.
That sounds familiar now.
Yeah, it was like there has to be it has to be diversity or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I
the
mentioned
DEI of Again,
it
it's
was-
something that I really support.
I think it had to do with who you could vote for. You couldn't vote for all the same gender. You had to vote for.
Oh, is that what it was?
I think. I don't have any. I don't remember exactly where I saw it. I think I heard it on a podcast or something like that. So I don't.
I mean, maybe they were
They
joking.
were trying to do the laws, and then she even messed up the laws while she was talking about the gender stuff.
Is that what it was?
A week or two ago, yeah, I forget where it was.
Yeah. But again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. The Democrats need to decide what they want. Are they the party of are they the party of the working class, or are they the party of the extremely poor and extremely rich?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way the party they are now is we're the party of the extremely rich, and we will dole out money via the government to the very poor.
I got to be honest. The Democratic Party, in 2015, Vox.com said it was the party of the wealthy.
Yeah.
Today, the Democratic Party is the party of low functioning, I guess, amoral cultists.
Yeah.
Like, they don't represent wealth. Yeah. They don't represent the working class. They just represent people who have no cognitive function.
I mean, I think it's just low information. I was liberal until I started reading books.
What kind of liberal?
I mean, Howard Dean,
Okay.
marching. I would go to the protests outside of Fox News. This is what democracy.
Oh,
looks
earthy,
like.
crunchy liberal.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then
okay.
it turned out it was really nice. Now there is that movement on the right, so I didn't even have to go that far.
That's hilarious, isn't it? But I think that speaks to the idea that the the left is the party of the rich,
Yes.
champagne socialist,
Well,
and the party of
They think they're the party of the working class. A lot of them.
No, I don't.
Some of them
I don't think they do.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Like, I think these people think they are, like David Hogg.
No. Hogg knows exactly what's going on. Come on, he ran in full speed and ran out cash. He's not playing the games. Do you guys know? Do you remember the battle? The battle in Seattle. Let me pull this one up.
I think so.
Yup, it was
hilarious.
The battle in Seattle.
Do you mean was it the World Bank thing?
That's the movie. We don't want the movie. So it was the 1999 World Trade Organization protests.
For sure, yeah.
So in 1999, leftists staged a massive protest in Seattle to protest against free trade in the World Trade Organization. Come 16 years later, Donald Trump, representing much of these same ideas, was considered far right and lambasted by many of the veterans of the WTO protests.
Yeah. Noah Rothman, my husband works for Commentary Magazine, and Noah Rothman just wrote it was basically a book in Commentary Magazine, but he wrote about sort of the basis of all of these left-wing violence movements, and this was his jumping off point was
the anti-globalization movement.
That's right.
Yeah.
And take a look at this image that they use for the anti-globalization movement. There's a guy with the anarchist A. These are clearly not. It's anarchism in the United States. How is it that in 1999 the police were pepper spraying anti-globalists?
Yep. This was like an Alex Jones movement. You know?
Yep. And then Donald Trump comes in. He's like, I agree with the left on all of this. He's far right. We're for the government now. Okay, well, the left is just whatever the right isn't, I guess.
I do strongly believe that this is the result of the end of the Smith Modernization Act. And I didn't know.
I disagree with that.
You think so?
Yeah, because no one's ever articulated what exactly happened that resulted in this shift from government.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Barack Obama, and so there was a law banning propaganda against the U.S. people.
Mm-hmm.
It ends. What then happened that converted people from left to right?
So I think that the media used to lean to the left, and I think that the media became staunchly the mouthpiece for the left. And I think that
After the end of Smith modernization.
Yeah, around the time.
What year was that?
That was 2012. I think it actually took effect in 2013.
When the CIA was running Mockingbird and directly paying journalists to write the news to support the machine state, that wasn't.
That was good, but they were targeting the right back then, or they were targeting the left back then. The whole operation.
But again, my point is, we know for a fact that the CIA intelligence agencies had long infiltrated the media. Mm-hmm. I can tell you for a fact that in 2013, State Department had been calling news organizations, and well before I worked for some of these companies.
2013 said, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But so in 2013, I learned from executives at some companies that they had long been in communication with the State Department as to what stories they were covering, what they were learning, and how they could assist the U.S. government in this regard. People like to say, Obama made propaganda legal. Nothing changed. The deep state and the powerful interests were always controlling the media. There was always the machine.
I don't think that it was. I think that it became more concerted. I don't think that it was as because there was, and the reason I say that is because there was a more varied opinion on the news. You had when CNN kind of came on, CNN used to be fairly middle of the road. You had Fox News and CNN, which were center and right leaning until kind of the end of the aughts when MSNBC kind of stopped being middle of the road. Because I used to watch MSNBC and during most of the aughts when Joe Scarborough was still acting like a Republican, when he had Scarborough Country in the evening. That was his evening show. When Dan Abrams had his legal analysis show in the evening, and they were not a uniform voice.
But there is still no evidence the U.S. government, after the change of this law, took action to make those changes.
There may be no hard evidence, but I think that the evidence is the way that all of the news agencies coalesced around the left.
There is hard evidence that news agencies coalesced around the left when Facebook, X, and other platforms started shifting their algorithm to promote hate because liberal women share more hateful content than any other demographic.
Because this, like I said,
that happened in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
This happened on MSNBC. Like I said, I used to watch MSNBC all the time. I stopped watching it.
So again, the point is, I hear this cited all the time. The Smith Modernization Act, they changed it. This allowed Voice of America and other American media outlets that operated externally to now broadcast those same websites and radio shows internally as well. That's all it did. The insinuation that somehow they then started propagandizing through the media, there's no direct evidence that anything changed, considering we know Mockingbird was happening going back to the 60s?
I think
earlier than that. Yeah. We had the Office of Censorship. We sell a T-shirt on the Timcast store from almost 10 years ago, which has it's the Illuminati pyramid toppled with the slogan of the U.S. Office of Censorship on the bottom, but flipped over. This is World War II. After that, we had intelligence infiltration into the media to determine what people could be talking about and what not. That was always in play, and it never changed.
Mockingbird was in the 60s, though.
Yes.
Your argument is that
my argument is that the government has always used intelligence agencies to control journalism in this country to be pro-machine,
we just
pro-establishment.
saw USAID funding.
The 2012, yeah, right. Well, I mean, that was minimal. That was 44,000. The 2012 change in the law did not affect what they were already doing some 50 years prior.
So if I understand correctly, Mockingbird ended.
Put that in quotes, Phil.
Well, okay, so but
Mockingbird didn't end.
Okay, so then I mean, there's no evidence that Mockingbird didn't end when it says in the Wikipedia. If you can go to the Wikipedia thing and this is the only place that you're going to get or that I can find evidence.
Most of those things just rebrand under different names, you know.
So, but again, if Tim is talking about evidence, there's no evidence that it rebranded.
I would say a lot of the problem that we're all seeing in the news is that the universities pumped out ideologues.
100%,
right?
I agree with that.
They coalesced around
a
certain idea, and that's what also degraded the audience, who's also coming out of the universities.
So
I agree 100%.
We don't have it pulled up, but this story was, I think, 10 years ago. There was a journalist who was caught with a bunch of fake articles, and the CIA had written articles for him and published them under his byline. That was like a huge story that came out. My point is, when we're asking how it is, if you want to make the argument that powerful global interests, governments or otherwise, were trying to influence the public, the easy answer is they went to Facebook and said, you will alter the algorithm for content delivery to promote these ideas. I believe that's probably true, but I can tell you for a fact, we know, as I have done, I work in this industry, liberal women share the most content on social media, and the content they share most is things that induce rage. This was well known at the onset of social media. And so in the early days of Facebook, they were trying to figure out how to keep people on the platform longer. So they wanted to promote content that was more likely to get shared. So this created, it's a parabolic curve of sharing. The more shares it gets, the more likely the algorithm will display it, meaning it'll get exponentially more shares. And that's how you get the virality of Facebook. They began to prioritize whatever it is, and whether it was intentional or otherwise. Facebook just said, if it gets a lot of shares, show it to more people, it'll keep them on the platform longer. It'll generate more activity, more engagement. The concern was around the time that people started liking and friending at least 300 people, the reverse chronological feed was moving much too quickly for them to see anything relevant. So if they refreshed the page, they'd get a guy saying, my car won't start. Who cares? So they said, okay, algorithmic prioritization to only show the best stuff. This is when we started seeing people post things like, I just had a baby and I'm married. And then underneath it, they would write, that's not true, actually. We're having a pizza party. Y'all should come. I only wrote that because that way Facebook would show it to you. Because they knew these are the things that Facebook would promote. Right. BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, Mike.com, all of these websites started shifting their strategy towards content that was more likely to get shared. And the content that's most likely to get shared is anything that targets angry liberal women. So the example I love to cite is Mike.com in the early 2010s was a Ron Paul libertarian freedom-loving website because that was the Ron Paul revolution on social media. Everybody was sharing the stuff, but it didn't share better than things that make liberal women angry. And so what happens is you get two writers for one website. One guy writes, Ron Paul's great, freedom and the Fed, and it gets 1,000 shares because people were like, hey, look at this. Then you get one article that says police brutality. It was in line with the Ron Paul freedom anti-government messaging that was going around. Cops are also bad. Hence, if you look at Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones back then, they had a ton of videos about police brutality because it was in line with anti-government freedom stuff. These are agents of the government beating people. So what ends up happening then? These news websites like Mike.com start sharing freedom, liberty, and police brutality. But guess what? liberal women share police brutality videos like crazy. So then this started shifting the focus. Hey, we make more money if we do police brutality videos. Then someone discovered something. When the police brutality was about racism, it got even more shares. So what they discovered was that with the Facebook algorithm, if you share police brutality, you get X views. If you share racism, you get Y views. When you write about racist police brutality, you didn't get X plus Y views, you got X times Y views, because the parabolic growth curve of the algorithm, the more shares it got, the more suggestions that were made, the more shares it would get. Then you can see in the LexisNexis data, as soon as this was implemented, every newspaper skyrocketed with mentions of systemic racism, white privilege, etc. Why? Angry liberal women share more than anybody else. So in 2014, when I joined Fusion, I talked to their marketing guy, and he outright said, when we make content, we know that we're going to get more shares and more views and make more money if we make it targeting angry liberal women. And I said, but then all your content is going to be like for angry liberal women. And they were like, well, we try to balance it out for the website after they come. And so this is what started to shift what was acceptable. Advertisers didn't want to be associated with what they thought was socially unacceptable, but the only articles that were coming out were racism, racism, racism. This ultimately exemplified itself so well in a viral article, I think it was from Vice, and it was like, Black trans women of color fighting against police brutality exemplify the end of cis heteronormative patriarchy. They tried jamming every single buzzword into one article because Facebook was going to blast it off and they're going to make a ton of money. Right. And then along came Mark Zuckerberg, who said, we're banning politics. And then it just ended that era. And maybe that was the right thing to do. I don't know.
Well, didn't a lot of conservative sites also do very well during that time as well? Like Daily Wire. Yeah, Daily Wire launched itself, and Ben did too.
So what ended up happening was Daily Wire was massive. They were the biggest distributor, but it's because the corporate press was largely just following venture capital funding and what was easiest. So when NBC was looking for content, they said, look, we're an urban liberal market. We're moderate. We don't want hardcore conservative stuff like Fox News. Let's invest in, insert media blog. Media blog starts going further and further left, brings on more and more young people. I had this argument, and I have it a lot, where people are like, it's the universities that did it. Incorrect. A 10-year-old kid gets on Facebook in, 2007. Maybe they're not supposed to be. It was supposed to be 13. No, but they do. Facebook keeps sharing police brutality videos with that 10-year-old kid. That kid grows up with nothing but police brutality videos slamming their feed for a decade. They're now 20 years old, screaming and bashing their faces on the wall about how millions of black people are being murdered every year. Why? I mean, bro, if you turned on the TV and every channel was about police brutality and beating of black people, you in your mind would be like, man, it never ends. But the reality was Facebook was forcing that down your throat. So it shaped the minds of all of these young people. They enter the workforce. They live in this fractured reality, and that's what they believe. Mm-hmm. For sites like the Daily Wire, they struggled against Jack Dorsey being the best example of how he hooked the sewage pipe of his own company into his mouth and drank it and guzzled it and gargled it and loved it. The free speech wing of the free speech party, twitter.com. And then what happened? When his own algorithmic trends started promoting this psychotic garbage, he hooked it right into his brain and consumed it and adopted that worldview and then banned free speech. He ate the refuse of the psychotic algorithm he built. So my argument for AI and where we're going is that in the next 50 years, everyone's going to be dressed, the clothing will be corn on the cob. Everyone will be walking around in corn on the cob costumes. Cars will be largely made of corn plastics and look like corn. People go to the restaurant and order various types of corn. I'm kidding. My point is, the AI is going to look to maximize engagement, and we subsidize corn like nobody's business. The AI can't discern why we're eating so much corn. It will simply say, if the goal of the AIs is every time it delivers a response the user likes, follow that route. If Americans are predisposed towards these subsidized programs, the AI doesn't care what we need or want. It only cares what will deliver. So my joke is, not that I actually think it'll be corn, it will overly obsess with corn because it has for a human being, we don't want to eat ice cream 24/7, but ice cream's pretty dang good. If you ask a robot, I would like food, and it offered you on the spot while you were hungry, apple pie, ice cream, or, broccoli salad, people are going to be like, I'll take the ice cream. I don't want the broccoli salad. The AI doesn't care about what we need or want. It simply says human positive reaction ice cream. And it's going to chase after those things until our brains turn to jello. That's basically what happened in the early era of social media. Long story short, that's why I don't think the government just decided one day to turn on propaganda and tell all the corporate press is what they're going to do, mostly because they already had been doing that. But now here we are on the back end of it. I think we're winning. So I am rather optimistic that moving forward, that stuff's going to fail. I still think, obviously, the deep state is deeply entrenched in media. That's why MSNBC and CNN hire a whole bunch of former intel guys to be their pundits. But Trump is gutting and eviscerating the deep state, so we're probably good.
Feels good. I do worry about these David Hogg types. I don't worry because I want them to destroy themselves, but I worry about that's what they're going to keep promoting. So there's just going to be a ever-widening fracture of civilization. And those people will inherit the metaverse and then, I guess, just rot away in the digital universe. And then do we...
bro.
What do we do with that? Are they going to just do that in the 15-minute cities and print out a suicide pod?
No, I don't think suicide pods will be a thing.
You don't think so?
So did you hear the story? So there was that suicide pod they made. I think it was in Switzerland, or where was it?
Story. I think it was in Switzerland. Yeah.
Yeah, but guess what? You know what the story was?
Oh yeah.
They strangled the woman to death because the pod didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine that customer service.
Okay. Long story short, a woman was like, "I don't want to be alive anymore.
I know that,
we have this pod you can go in and it will put you to sleep." It failed, so they found them with her. She was strangled to death. So they think the guy who made it, she came in, it didn't work. So he opened it and just choked her out.
Is this the story I saw in the Free Press? Is that?
I don't know if they wrote about it.
Because I didn't see the strangle part.
Yeah, so the first story was she successfully completed her medical assistance in dying. Then after the investigation concluded, they were like, no, she had strangulation marks on her neck.
My God.
Yeah.
Couldn't they just
dystopian?
couldn't they just up the nitrogen level and bring the oxygen down?
Isn't it obvious? The pod was never real. Yeah. They were like, why spend millions of dollars making a machine when the person can just come in and they could manually...
Yeah.
They're like, we don't need chemicals or gas or chambers.
Yeah, they're just researching how to do it without the marks.
Right.
Oh, man.
Well, we can't figure out how to execute people in this country. Like, they can't do it.
Didn't they bring back the firing squad?
I think they were trying to do it chemically, and they kept on messing up all of the
drug.
That's
right.
If I understand correctly, the drug company that made the not sodium pentanol. That was
sodium something.
Yeah.
Something. But they stopped. They were like, we don't want to make this for you anymore. They didn't want to make the drug for people.
I honestly think it's really silly and weird because they do a 3 chemical injection and then they have like all of these convoluted means of just like you could deoxygenate the room. I mean, like, I don't understand why it has to be so convoluted. For one, I oppose the death penalty because I don't trust the state. That doesn't mean that people never take actions that warrant them having to face
just because I don't want the government doing it doesn't mean there aren't plenty of people that deserve it.
Well, in all clarification, it's important to distinguish. Some people are engaged in imminent harm. In actions that will cause imminent bodily harm or death of others. We recognize as a human being, self-defense and defense of others, you are warranted to use force. I strongly recommend anybody listening, talk to a lawyer now, not later, and understand your state and your rights and what is and not allowed. I don't want anybody to die. Even violent criminals. I want life to survive, and I wish there was rehabilitation. That being said, when it comes to the death penalty, it all is just awfully convoluted. But we are going to go to Super Chats in a second, so I just wanted to say one more thing. It is inevitable that the left is going to plug their brains into the Neuralink by choice. I think that I'm not a conservative. I know conservatives are going to disagree with me on this one. I have no problem with Elon Musk developing Neuralink and us going to our liberal friends and saying, I will pay for the Neuralink for you. You will be a wizard king who fights dragons every day. You won't have to work your job. You'll be surrounded by beautiful, busty maidens who want to be the wizard king's wife. Or you'll be a secret agent. I don't know.
You
whatever
lost in that maidens.
Sure. Or is that, what's the...
Oh, they want trolls or something.
Well, whatever they want. The point is, liberals want, many of them, not all of them, but enough of them, would gladly plug in their brains to the Matrix, where they get to be the president, the king, a superhero, and then they can leave the earth and all of its beauty to us to maintain. And I am okay with that deal. Conservatives will absolutely reject the Neuralink. They will continue to raise families and be good stewards of the earth. And the liberals will be like, you guys are dumb. Plug their brains in, go in the pod, and we don't have to worry about them voting and destroying everything anymore.
I'm starting to think there's probably conservatives who will do the Neuralink.
Sure.
And they're so anti-trans now, but they'll be transhumanists in like 10 years.
Well, the joke that, basically everybody made, like I think Seamus made it, is that in 50 years, the Democrats are... it's going to be an AI, and the Republicans are transgender communists.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we don't want the AI. Okay, we got to go to Super Chats. So, my friends, smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, and head over to rumble.com/Timcast IRL to watch the uncensored call-in portion of the show, which happens at 10 p.m. only on Rumble Premium. You can go to timcastpremium.com, sends you right to that sign-up page where you can use promo code TIM10 and get $10 off your annual membership. Also, I got to shout it out. The Green Room episode just went live with Chad Hall of Snake Farm Skateboards, Phil Labonte, and Chuck. And you guys had a pretty fun conversation. You were talking about some wild stuff. Human growth hormone.
A lot of interesting stuff. We were talking about bodybuilders and lifting, and we were talking about Chad's time in the as a combat controller and the point and click stuff that he did.
Uncensored. You go watch it. It's really great because Chad's a rad dude. He skateboards. He's also he's a warrior. This man is a warrior. He's a massive dude, and he's served overseas, and he works in the government today. And we were skating, and I was talking to him about I forgot what came up. We were talking about, like, we had an event, and he mentioned that he showed up one day and he saw Phil was here, and he was like, oh man, I'm a huge All That Remains fan. And he mentioned that when he was in Afghanistan, he and the boys were blasting All That Remains on their way to combat missions or something to this effect. And I was like, wait, say no more. You guys got to sit down and have a conversation, because that would be really interesting.
He's a good dude. And that's a really big compliment. Dudes like that are like, yo, man, your music really kind of got me through some hard times, or it really got us really pumped up to go outside the wire and stuff like that. It's
epic.
It's pretty cool to be able to give people that kind of confidence, or help the people that have that kind of confidence get ready to go out and do some of the most dangerous stuff that they ever do, you know?
So that video is up at rumble.com/Timcast IRL, premium only. So sign up now, but let's grab your super chats. All right, where are we at? I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, this story is helping no one and only benefits the deep state in creating a rift. Single moms aren't good for society, but we can't lose focus when we are over the targets. We may actually win this. Yeah, to be completely honest, when the story broke, I was like, I ain't talking about that. It's just like having babies and this Elon stuff is like TMZ level. And then as the story ruminated, as I've loved using that word as of late, over the weekend, and then today with more information dropping, and it looks more so like there's actually a bigger scandal here. I think there's a cultural question about what the right is willing to accept, and hashing that out, I think, was important. And I'm like, man, this story's popping up like crazy. Let's roll with it. I don't know. I probably would have preferred to roll with the airplane story going back, but I just felt like it was culturally massive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is an important conversation that we need to have in the framework of, like, we have a birth crisis, and I think there's two paths that we're seeing as conservatives: the J.D. Vance path and the Elon Musk path. I'm a big fan of J.D. Vance's path. He's walking through every single engagement, carrying his kids. He's an engaged dad. He was raised by a single mother. So you don't have to be anti-single mom, because we have a wonderful vice president, thanks to, well, not really thanks to his single mom, really thanks to his grandmother. But we need to make a decision as a society, like, how are we going to save ourselves? And it's the J.D. Vance way.
We did a Culture War episode with Candace Horbach and Myron Gaines, and it was about adult content and society and what it was doing. And, of course, relationships and marriage were a big component of this. And Myron was saying, don't get married because, with the state, because it's broken and it's bad for you. But he did say having a kid out of wedlock is an L, and I respect that. The problem is then, though, you can't get married. I mean, pick one. Like, what do we do? I think the issue is there are a lot of these guys out there that are like, men shouldn't get married and men should sleep around and men should have babies with as many women as possible because that's what an alpha would do. And I'm like, no, that's what a chimp does. I'm not being a dick. I'm like, that's literally how chimps society works.
But also, if you want to have more sex as a man, you will have that sex if you're married. Like, statistically, you are more likely to get laid if you're married. I can text someone in my house and get laid. Like, it really does not get better than that.
I just think ultimately, another thing that Myron pointed out was that men shouldn't cry in front of their women. And I was like, in my view, a man who is worried about how he appears in front of women is weaker than a man who doesn't care at all. Mm. And I'm like, obviously, we can all agree that if a man is weeping over something inane, like...
And like habitually. Like,
right.
I've seen my husband cry like I can count it on my hand.
Yeah.
But if he was doing it a lot, it's kind of a turnoff.
Well, it's Candace mentioned if you're having relationship issues and the man starts crying, it's like, okay, this is done.
That's great.
Or like I said, if a guy gets yelled at work by his boss and he comes home crying, like, yeah, no. But Myron was saying like, no, never. No crying for any reason. And I'm like, he said it makes you look weak. It's weakness. And my response was, imagine walking up to a man who is standing over his dog who had just died that he had for 13 years. And as he is crying, you say, you shouldn't cry in front of your wife. You look weak. I strongly recommend you don't do that.
That's ridiculous. I teared up every time my kids are born.
What do you think a man would do as he's looking at his dog he had for 13 years die and someone said, you look weak in front of your wife? Do not give a man in that much pain an excuse to be violent.
Right.
Like, I'm like, bro, there are circumstances where the strongest men alive will cry, like watching their son die. Mm-hmm. And Lord help you if you call him weak to his face in that moment, because he might rip your esophagus out and beat you to death with it.
I'm tired of childless men telling other men what it means to be strong.
Yeah.
I just kind of, and the other thing too is about marriage. I was like, this idea of like, you shouldn't get married because women are all bad. And I'm like, that just sounds so childish and weak. Yeah. Strong men throw themselves onto grenades and rush into burning buildings. I was talking about this on the morning show. There's a story, someone went viral, like 11 million views of a rooster that fought a red-tailed hawk. And then the person ran out with a shovel and the hawk flew away and the rooster gargled and then succumbed to his injuries. And it got 11 million views because humans are saluting that rooster for sacrificing himself to save the women. Yeah. And I'm like, there are guys out there that think they're tough, being like, I have no duty or responsibilities. I refuse to take any risks in this degenerate society. And I'm like, men aren't supposed to live risk-free. If the fear is that like the laws favor women, yes, you will run into a burning building. The risk does not favor you in that regard. You might die. Mm-hmm. And strong men do it every day. Yep. A man who is going to raise a family, as families are required to raise strong human beings, needs to be married and raise that family and be there for their children. And then these guys come out and they say, yeah, but what if she divorces you? I'll be like, and what if an I-beam crushes my skull when I run into a burning building? Bad things will likely happen to me. I'm a man. I accept that. I do my duty.
Yep. Yeah. I saw my son save my daughter from a falling branch earlier.
Whoa. No.
Oh, wow.
And I talked to him about, like, it was just instinctual. Right. And I talked to him about the story about the plane crash in Philly, about a young boy shielding his little sister. Instinctual. He jumped on his little sister, was in a coma, I guess, woke up, and the first thing he said was, is my sister alive?
Yes.
I'm like, that's strength. It's just in you. You take that risk to save the people who are weaker than you.
Over the weekend, an American hostage was freed from Gaza, and he's American Israeli, and they didn't know. I know the family. I know his dad, and they didn't know if he was alive this whole time. And he was captured because he locked his pregnant wife and 2 little girls in their safe room and then went out to hand-to-hand combat Hamas. Whoa. And they never heard anything from him. For 497 days, they didn't know what happened to him.
Yo, but he was married?
Yeah. And so when he came out, the first thing he runs towards his wife, and they had shot him in the shoulder, and so he can't lift one of his arms.
Wow.
And so he runs kind of like dopey towards his wife and gives her a hug and is crying. And I'm like, that is the manliest man I have ever seen. Mm-hmm. And that is also the sexiest thing I've ever seen. Like, he came out of that Gaza looking pretty
like
hot.
The rooster.
Right.
Someone said in the chat, telling married men not to be wimpy is constructive criticism. No, I agree. A guy who's like, my boss was mean to me, and like, oh God, calm down.
Right.
But like, My point was that Myron said there's never a circumstance in which a man should cry in front of his woman. And I'm like, I think there's some women who might be really worried if your dad died and you didn't cry. And you're just like, well, dad's dead. They'd be like,
what's for dinner?
I mean, I would be
like,
worried
do you care about me?
That person like exploding and being a violent, like that would scare me. Honestly, as a woman, my instinct, if I see a man who just cannot express emotion past a certain threshold, I'll be like, he is going to kill me in my sleep.
I was describing it as, I think men typically cry from pain and rage, and women cry from sadness and joy. So like the saying is that men cry once a year, women cry once a month. I don't believe that's true. Men cry substantially less than that. But I think the average probably comes from there's a lot of men who cry too much and then a lot of men who cry very, very little. But I think about like how I was feeling when, Mr. Bocus, our cat, died. That was not a circumstance where I was debilitated. It was a circumstance where I wanted to punch through a brick wall. It was like the pain I felt at the passing of Mr. Bocus was not a debilitating sadness. It was, don't give me an excuse. I am in no mood for this.
Yep.
I think that's how the men... kind of approach it.
The only time I've ever seen my husband actually really cry, I was actually afraid.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if a guy was crying for a legitimate reason, like a family member died, dude, I saw a video once. It went viral a while ago. I think I was on X. It was a dad holding his son who had just died, and I think it was like a car accident. And it was like, it went viral because people were like, this sound will haunt your nightmares. And like the wailing sound was just like,
yeah, that's all.
Wow, man.
Horrible.
Moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's grab some more. All right. Jason Dutton says, reporter Steve Bannon recently released data on how the Army pulled $225 million of soldiers' basic allowances for subsistence across numerous Army bases, and $151 million of those dollars were used to not fund dining facilities as per law. Where did it go then? Let's see. The Stu G Master says Fox News reports that Elon has uncovered $4.7 trillion. Do you know anything about this, or can you look into it? It looks like the report just came up. I don't know. I don't know what that was specifically in regards to. Pilgrim says, hear me out. It was an Elon Musk impersonator. Yo, could you imagine if somebody impersonated Elon Musk and a woman believed it?
You have to have a lot of
Slept
money.
with him. I'm sure that's happened a million times already.
To simulate being Elon Musk, you don't need a lot of money.
Well, if you're being put up in a crazy apartment,
No, I'm not saying to actually. I'm saying if a guy who looked like Elon, it messaged him online, brought her to a fancy restaurant, spent $1,000 on a luxury suite, said, I'm Elon, I'm going to take care of you. Oh, and then got her pregnant, and then wasn't Elon, and then she's going out being like, Elon did this. You know what I mean?
I am of the mind that there's more than one Elon. We don't have to get into it now, but there's probably more than one Elon. That's why he does all these things at the same time.
He does tweet a lot.
He tweets all the time.
I have a tweet notification, and I'm honestly.
It's too much.
They're actually. Have you ever seen Elon in person?
I have.
I have actually.
Nope. There's no Elon. She's lying. She's in on it. She's working with Elon.
Who do you work for? Real quick, Raw.
Have you ever seen Elon and Trump in the same room?
Only on TV, and I think they're both holograms. I'm hearing reports on Twitter that Kathy Hochul might be having a meeting to remove Eric Adams as mayor.
Can she do
I don't think she can do that.
I don't know. That's what they're saying online. That's what a lot of people are saying. They can't do that either. But I wouldn't put it past her.
To do something.
I left that state because of her.
Yo, I just want to say this, guys.
She's evil.
Tom Homan has been talking about exploring whether AOC broke the law. You've got Elizabeth Warren saying that what Elon is doing is illegal. I think it was Warren who said this, right? He should be jailed or whatever. Elon now saying CBS should be jailed. If Hochul does remove Eric Adams, guys, let me just ask you this, because you're going to get mad at me, but what do you call the state of a country when two political parties have begun calling for the arrest of each other, and when the governors begin trying to remove politicians who are in support of one faction?
Banana Republic.
Civil strife.
I mean,
this is precursor level stuff. As Matt Taibbi pointed out, what is it now, 6 years ago, you get to the point where two cars drive full speed to a police station. Two men jump out. A man jumps out of each car. They run up to the front of the police station, look at the chief, and say, "Arrest that man!" at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the point when nations fall into civil war. Imagine if Democrats actually, they don't have the power to do so, but at the state level, they tried imprisoning Donald Trump. If Hochul does try to remove Eric Adams because he's allowing ICE to enforce immigration law, so she tries to remove a duly elected leader in a city, I mean, we are at chaos levels of breakdown.
I wouldn't put it past her. She's psychotic.
But I don't. Is that true though, or just a rumor?
I'm seeing reports that it's a possibility.
Like Kathy Hochul.
But
I think that the fact that this is something that they entertain speaks to the problems that we're having. I mean, we just spent 4 years where Donald Trump was attacked relentlessly using the justice system, using the courts with absolutely fabricated charges.
Yeah.
The whole situation with with Mar-a-Lago, the real estate deal, that was absolutely totally political. It was not based in reality at all. The situation with the whatever 34 counts that were felonies or whatever, those were all misdemeanors because there's no underlying crime to raise them to the level of felonies. This is all of the stuff that they were talking about when it came to secret documents at Mar-a-Lago. All of the all the former presidents that are currently alive have secret documents at their homes.
That's what won Donald Trump my vote. Was all that stuff was it? I mean, I was one of those voters in Pennsylvania who was like, "Why are you voting for Donald Trump?" Because I want to protect democracy.
Yeah.
All right. Leor Engelstein says, years ago I was on welfare and got a good job. My caseworker looked at me like I grew a third eye and told me if I report my new earnings, I will lose all my benefits and tried to push me to quit my new well-paying career.
Shoot.
I was on unemployment some 20, holy crap. How old am I? 18 years ago. So when I think I was like 20, 21, I got unemployment after a long story. Got fired from a job. It was an illegal firing. I ended up winning a suit against them. But in the meantime, I got unemployment. And I remember when I was on the phone, because you got to call once a week, and also in the middle of litigation over illegal termination or like wrongful termination. And they said, it was this woman, and they asked you questions like, are you actively looking for work? And I was like, I am. And then I ended up getting, 1 week they made me talk to a person for like an update. And she said something like, whatever you do, don't take whatever job they give you. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, certainly I got to take a job. She's like, no. Only take a job that's paying you what you are paying or more. Really? She said, if you accept a lower paying job and you can't maintain your standard and your rent and your income, you're going to be on unemployment again. So just take it easy, take the benefits, and wait until you find a job that pays you what you were getting paid before. And I was like, okay. I was like, I see the logic in that. And then I won my settlement and I got off it and said, I don't need this anymore. But it's an interesting logic that I think keeps a lot of people on unemployment and stops them from actively trying to find a situation that will better themselves. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I understand. If you're a guy who's got 3 kids and they're paying you 67% of what your, last year's income was, and then someone offers you a job at half that rate, which would reduce your income, you'll end up homeless with 3 kids living on the street. It kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like golden handcuffs for welfare.
Yeah. No easy answer.
That's one of the big problems with our safety net system is it doesn't really incentivize people to get off of it.
Yep.
And it doesn't make it easy to get off of it either.
I think what they should do is, instead of just ending your unemployment benefits, it should slowly start decreasing. So it's like, so instead of being like, today it's over, bye, have a nice day, it's like, at this point, take the job that pays less and you'll keep getting the difference. On let's say they pay you 67%, you find a job that pays 50, they'll pay you the 17.
Right.
And then it slowly diminishes over time so you can adjust and figure things out. Yeah, it's rough. I'm not a staunch far right, ANCAP libertarian. I do think social safety net stuff is good. The problem is social safety nets are for a moral and just society.
Yeah.
It's the same as what they say about the foundation of this country and what our system's meant to do. If you're a guy, you're a hardworking guy, you believe in family, and your company shuts down through no fault of your own, you get unemployment, you're going to be trying every day to work as hard as you can to make it out of that situation. The problem is Democrats seem to think that every homeless person is that. No, they're mostly just incapable or unwilling to do anything. It's like, not easy. All right, let's grab a couple more of these super chats. Robert Bradbury says the same people that say Elon shouldn't be allowed to do the Doge praise Fauci like a god. Isn't that funny? Kane Abel says, Tim, Disney Wars does not count. We do not count what Disney does with Star Wars because they screwed it all up. Yeah, I consider all of Disney Star Wars to be fan fiction and the written Star Wars to be canon. Because like Knights of the Old Republic was good. And there's a lot of great lore. And they came up with great ideas. And then Disney was like, let's get rid of all that. And just, I don't know, Rey can pick up spaceships. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that. D'Artagnan says, do not give Margera the benefit of thinking he doesn't know what he's doing. We are past the point of saying they're misled. They're evil by choice. Bro, I assure you, Jess Margera is not a smart person.
This might be controversial, but Bloodhound Gang is a better Pennsylvania band than CKY. I love CKY, but I love Bloodhound Gang.
Baby, ain't nothing.
Well, bro, you know Bam is MAGA, right?
Is he?
Yeah, this is funny. Bam apparently said something like FJB or whatever. And so like some article popped up in the skateboarding world being like Bam Margera goes full Trump.
Nice.
Meanwhile, his brother, who they don't like each other at all, is like hardcore anti-MAGA. And I'm just like, I try to tweet at him. He's like, these people are in a cult. They don't realize it. I'm like, Jess, we're the popular vote. We're the popular margin. Regular people are begging you to stop being in the cult. No, they can't do it. All right, everybody, smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. If you haven't already, head over to timcastpremium.com. Become a Rumble Premium member. Use promo code TIM10 because if you're watching Timcast IRL on Rumble, there will be a seamless transition into our uncensored call-in portion of the show where you as Discord members at timcast.com can call into the show. So it's split up basically because our Discord community is not necessarily a content thing. But if you want to hang out with 20,000 plus individuals, make friends, meet people who can help you start that podcast or make those, projects, make those video games, make those comic books, whatever you want to do, play cards, play Magic, whatever it is. The Timcast Discord is a way to meet people. We set it up because we want to build spheres of influence. If you're in that Discord, you can call into the show in our uncensored portion. But if you're a Rumble Premium member, not only do you get the Green Room Uncensored show, which we just had another episode come up today, you'll get the Uncensored call-in show and our feature-length documentaries. I'm currently talking with some of our producer buddies about the next documentaries we're going to be rolling out. Hopefully every 3 months, a new feature-length documentary for our Rumble Premium users. But you can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Bethany, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, the Mom Wars Substack and podcast. Check them out.
Sweet. Thanks for joining us tonight. You can find me online at Shane Cashman. The show is Inverted World Live every Sunday at 6 p.m. And we do call-ins on that show. So if you have a weird story, some weird experience from ghosts to demons to mind control experiments, we've done them all. But you can hit me up with your stories if you want to call in at shanecashman@scanner.com.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can subscribe to my page there. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record dropped on January 31st. It is called Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on YouTube, Apple Music, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Deezer. And don't forget the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all on the uncensored call-in show at rumble.com/TimcastIRL now in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.